It's one of the ultimate battles in the crypto space. Which is better, Ethereum or Cardano? Which one is the better investment opportunity? Which one will ultimately win? If you want a good understanding of how these two crypto powerhouses compare, then this is for you. And in this video, we'll be covering some quick side-by-side stats and key tokenomics. We hear a lot about Ethereum's first mover advantage, but exactly how important is this? And then on to the two things that actually differentiate these protocols. The first is the business philosophy and their strategy, and the second is the target market. Where and what are they actually trying to do? And then we'll finish up with performance. As investors, we want to make money, right? So we'll look at the 1 month, the 1 quarter, and the 1 year performance. By the end of this video, you will likely know more about Ethereum and Cardano than 90% of investors out there. And as this video took many hours to make, just to say if you found anything useful in the video, then drop a like. Always appreciated. Okay, so let's begin with some side-by-side comparisons and a look at the key tokenomics. Ready? Let's do this. Okay, so we have Ethereum 2.0 versus Cardano. Now, when it comes to the founders, we have Vitalik Buterin for Ethereum and Charles Hoskinson for Cardano. Now, Charles was also a co-founder of Ethereum, but Vitalik is definitely the lead person here. When it comes to protocols, they both will be running from the proof of stake protocol. Ethereum 2.0 is set to launch either Q4 this year or beginning of next year, where Cardano, the smart contract functionality, will be coming this August. And this is going to be huge for Cardano. This is literally 6 years in the making. Next is the transactions per second. Once functional, we have 100,000 transactions per second for Ethereum versus 2.5 million for Cardano. And then when it comes to supply, Ethereum supply is technically unlimited, where Cardano has a 45 billion fixed supply. Now, a couple of quick things to mention here. 2.5 million sounds better than 100,000, but only if it's needed. What you may not know is that Visa, one of the biggest payment companies in the world, only actually uses about 2,000 transactions per second. And the second is that EIP 559 is launching in July for Ethereum, which will begin to burn gas fees, which could make Ethereum deflationary, which definitely impacts the supply. And the next quick thing to cover, if you've not seen it, is the blockchain trilemma. Now, historically, blockchains have struggled to meet all three criteria: security, scalability, and decentralization. It was Bitcoin that was the first generation. We had Ethereum, which was second generation, and these were very decentralized. They had thousands of nodes all around the world, which all needed to come to agreement to mine the blocks. This meant it was really secure, but the biggest complaint people have had is that they've not been scalable. Now, Cardano is on the way to solve this blockchain dilemma. It will be very decentralized, secure, and scalable. But what people don't realize is that the biggest Ethereum killer is Ethereum 2.0, which will also be solving the blockchain trilemma. Okay, next up, we hear a lot about Ethereum's first mover advantage. So exactly how important is a first mover advantage? We know there is this multi-billion-dollar industry, DeFi, being built on Ethereum, and it also has this NFT marketplace. And when it comes to developers working on the protocol, Ethereum again is miles ahead. It has thousands of developers compared to the competition, most of which only have a couple of hundred. So how important is this first mover advantage? Well, let's hear from the founder of Cardano himself, Charles Hoskinson.
I usually use the vernacular, it's the pond next to the ocean. So yeah, they're dominant within their pond and there's lots of cool evolution that's occurred there, but let's be real about the actual use and utility of the system. How many things in your day-to-day do you do that are driven by Ethereum? versus a product from Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, or any of the other Fortune 500 companies. I mean, this is very early days. It's like saying, oh, well, how are we going to beat Netscape? Oh my God, they have such a browser dominance. It's like, this is before you even have Facebook or, Web 3.0 and all this stuff, right? It's like, it's such early days. So I don't worry too much about this. What I worry about are markets that matter. So, for example, we've been in Africa for 3 years, and next year we're going to start announcing deals with millions of users. Now, over the next 5-10 years, we can grow our user base there to tens to hundreds of millions of people. Now, whether Ethereum succeeds or fails, who knows? It's not my prerogative, but just succeeding there, makes us one of the most valuable protocols in the world, because we're enabling a financial operating system for people who don't have one. So that's the game we play. We look at that in Eastern Europe, Southeast Asia, Africa, Latin America. And if we succeed there, who cares about Bitcoin and Ripple? These other guys, they'll have one customer for every 100 customers I have, and my customers are growing much faster than them.
And he makes a really good point. Netscape was a market leader at one point, and where are they now? We had Motorola that dominated mobile phones, and where are they now? So for me, the first mover advantage is just that. It's an advantage, but it doesn't guarantee ultimate success. Okay, now on to the two things which I think really differentiate these two protocols. The first is the business philosophy. This is the foundation, the DNA that the companies are built on, and also the business strategy, which is what drives the business. And the second is the target market. What is their target market, and what is it they're actually trying to do? The first is business philosophy. You may have heard that Vitalik and Charles haven't always seen eye to eye, and they often clashed on how to build the business. And why was this? Well, this is how I see it. Think of it like on one hand you have this young, bright-eyed entrepreneur, and on the other hand you have this older, traditional academic. Now, the young entrepreneur wants to launch now, make changes as you go, time is money, let's get going. And the academic wants to make sure that things are done properly. Before anything goes out, everything must be scientifically, rigorously tested. Now, for the entrepreneur, working with the academic can be quite frustrating. Waiting around for months is just wasting time, the market moves very quickly, and you could miss out to the competition. And for the academic, working with the entrepreneur can also be very frustrating. Launching a crappy product is not an option, and building a great product does take time, and this is how you ultimately win. And fundamentally, this is the difference between the two philosophies. This is why Ethereum is out right now and it's not perfect, and this is why Cardano sounds excellent on paper, but it's not yet launched. So why doesn't Cardano have a product, even though the company launched in 2015? Well, here is Charles, the founder of Cardano, explaining the correct scientific process.
You submit the paper double blind, so the authors are stripped and you don't know who the reviewers are, to an actual conference, and the conference is reviewed by your peers. So these are conferences run by Harvard and MIT and CMU. Okay, this is not normal stuff. And then they go through a referee process and they ask questions about the papers, and they either accept or reject them. Most of the tier 1 conferences reject 80 to 90% of the publications submitted to them. They don't survive the peer review process. So when I say we've written a peer-reviewed computer science paper, that means there's an actual process and standard, and it takes months to go through that process and standard. Then after your paper's accepted, it's not over. You have to go and present it. Usually, but pre-COVID days, you actually have to go to the conference, you do a presentation, your colleagues would be right there, they'd ask you questions. And then what happens is your paper becomes part of the scientific literature. So if you Google Ouroboros, for example, you'll see the first result on Google's our paper, and then you'll see citations. If you click that, those are all other papers that have made reference to our work and built on top of our work. I think there's over 900 of them. Yeah. So that's how you get tenure. It's how you become a professor, and it's a whole field of study. And this is what people do all day long. Now, why do we do this? Because it's hard to actually know what's real and know what's not real. You see in this space all the time, zero knowledge this, homomorphic encryption this, multi-party computing, blah, blah, blah. It's noise, word salad. How do you know, if you're not a domain expert who has a PhD in math or computer science or physics, that what you're reading is actually real? Yeah. So how about you get a third-party certification from independent people who aren't in the cryptocurrency space, who are actual academic cryptographers, who couldn't give a shit about our industry, who care about the science, and they actually read the paper and said, the math is right, the proofs are constructed correctly, the arguments are valid, and so forth. And there are many things you have to do to hit that standard. It's very complex. It's a lot of work. And this is why most people don't do it. Either they don't know how, they can't, or it takes a long time. And it's also frustrating.
So the entrepreneur finds the academics process frustrating, and the academic finds the entrepreneur's process frustrating, but ultimately both methods can and do work. Okay, the next big fundamental difference between the two is the target market. Did you know that both companies are actually targeting very different markets, at least initially? What most people don't realize is that both companies are actually targeting very different parts of the world. Ethereum is going after the developed world, the West, and the current financial system, with DeFi being its best use case. And Cardano is going after the developing world, starting with Africa and then going into South Asia. And here is Charles explaining why Cardano is choosing this route.
I started my company in February of 2015 with a dream of delivering economic identity to those who don't have it. The reality is the world lives still in two different configurations, one for the developed and one for the developing. In the developed world, there are many things we take for granted. The fact that it's easy for us to have an identity, passports, driver's licenses. It's easy for us to travel. It's easy for us to prove our creditworthiness and get credentials. It's easy for us to borrow money, get insurance, and to process payments. For example, if someone does a service for you, you can Venmo them something. You can send them a PayPal transaction. We take this for granted, and for the most part, it's part of our daily lives, just like breathing or drinking water. But when you live in the developing world, it's a very different prospect. It's very difficult to globalize. It's difficult to prove claims, whether you're producing something with fair trade or in a sustainable way. It's difficult for people to receive money and send money. These remittance transactions on average carry an 8 to 15% fee. When a person wants to borrow money, if it's even possible, these microfinance transactions can have interest rates as high as 85%, according to the World Bank.
So actually, they're both on very different paths. And I love Charles's noble mission for the developing world. His integrity and ethics and wanting to impact the world for the greater good is second to none. And this also says to me that these two blockchains are not the big competitors everyone thinks they are. And they are in fact going after different places in the world. So surely the smart investor would invest in both. And finally, let's finish with performance. As investors, we want to make money, right? Okay, so which one has given the better return on investment? Okay, so looking at performance, this time for the last 90 days, we'll use Bitcoin as the benchmark here, and this is down 32%. We have ADA here, which is up 21%, and we have ETH here, which is up 35%. So ETH winning this one, but we do have a notable mention to Dogecoin, up 440%. Next, we're going to look over a 1 month period. And as you can see, this last month really has not been good to the crypto market. This time, Bitcoin has fared better, and it's currently down about 19%. This time, ADA is slightly in the lead at 33% down, and ETH down 34%. And then lastly, we'll look at the 1 year performance. This time, Bitcoin comes in at 289%. We have ETH up 890%. Excellent performance. ADA is up 1,736%. Outstanding performance, but you'd have to say, who let the Doge out, which is up 11,900%. So, having spent many hours making this video, I too have a much better understanding of these two blockchains. Both protocols, when fully functional, look excellent. We had the young entrepreneur building fast, iterating as he goes, which reminds me a lot like the company Samsung. Samsung always build the technology first. They were the first to pioneer the OLED screen, they're the first to have the notchless phone, the first to have foldable technology, and always first to market. And then we had the academic who likes to take his time but build a great product. And this reminds me a bit like Apple. Apple nowadays are never the first to market. They still have a notch on their phone, no foldable technology, but when they do launch, it's normally better than everything else out there. And think about it, Samsung and Apple operate in the same market together. One hasn't killed the other. And the other big takeaway for me is that they're both targeting different parts of the world. Ethereum is the developed world and into the heart of the financial system, and Cardano's starting with Africa on a very noble mission with the developing world. So I say, why not cover the whole world and invest in both? Now, I do predominantly own Ethereum, but I also own Cardano. So there you are, guys. Hope you found this useful, and just one favor to ask. As this video did take many hours to make, if you did find anything useful in the video, then drop a like, and a big thank you to everyone who does. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, I invite you to click below and join us. I do have some great videos coming up that you don't want to miss. Okay, cheers guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.